episode 202. Got a good one for you today. My good friend, longtime friend from 1994, we met, Ed Winslow, is going to be joining the show. We're going to be talking about proof stacking. He's the founder and CEO of Proofstacking.ai. You can check out the website. How to transform your stories into powerful marketing assets. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about what's going on today. Today's day 38 of the government shutdown. So I want to give a shout out to Stephen Colbert. You guys know The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. I actually don't watch the show, but I read this morning. Hilarious. I had to read it to you. So in his monologue, I guess he said, so if you're traveling for Thanksgiving, you might want to leave now. You guys know what's going on with all the airlines closing, right? Well, not closing, but 200 flights canceled, American, United, the top three at close to 200 each. He said, it may be time to, I love this. He said, it may be time to try your new favorite airline, the bus. So I don't know about that. Taking the bus does take a long time. I checked from taking the bus. I thought maybe I would try taking it going back east, but forget about it. Here to New York, I think it takes like 20 hours. Anyway, that's true. I think the government's got to get their shit together now. The United States, we're kind of looking like fools. It's like we're playing paper, rock, scissors. We're not getting anywhere. So today they're voting for the 15th time. Maybe it's lucky 15. I don't know, but I'm not sure if these politicians are out of touch with reality. I think they are because, hey, guys, we got to get this country back on track. Got to get people working. These the controllers over there in the airlines. I mean, it's all about safety. We talked about last show, right? Cleanliness and safety. But for sure, when you're traveling, nobody wants to be fearful of getting on an airplane. So, hopefully, I'm going to wish them good luck today. Hopefully, we can kind of cross over that boundary and get the country back going. All right, I want to give a congrats here. A couple congrats are in order today. Congrats to Elon Musk. You guys know this. He had over 75% of people. I voted yes to make him the first trillionaire. But you guys have to understand, that's only going to happen if he meets certain I guess you could say the success is going up like 8 times in value. So the good news is if Elon Musk becomes a trillionaire, then my Tesla stock's worth millions. So, hey, good for him. I sure hope he does it. Let's go. 8 times Elon. Let's get it up there. You guys know I'm a big Tesla fan. I see the future in robotics for sure. I see the future in with the cars, right? The robo taxis. That's the future. You know what it costs to own a car today? That was one of these things I was listening to the radio about, the cost of everything and driving and whatnot. It costs thousands just to have a car. The average price of a new car today is over $50,000. So we need it, especially in Indianapolis. I said that, Elon, you can come to this city, easy city. Speaking of Indianapolis, I'm going to give a good luck tomorrow. It's the Indianapolis Monumental Marathon is tomorrow. And check this out, guys. This is true. I lived on the route. This is the marathon route of these cities. New York, I lived on 81st and 1st right there. Philadelphia. Honolulu, I lived on the route. Las Vegas, I watched it when the guy dressed as Elvis won. I think it was 2017 or so. Chicago lived on the route. And now Indianapolis, I'm right on the route. So 6 cities I get to watch the marathon. How about that? All right. So good luck tomorrow for all the runners. I know the New York Marathon, Chicago just recently. So, hey, hope it goes. And here's another congrats. Congrats to Nebraska Cornhuskers. You guys know that. I'm a big women's volleyball Cornhuskers fan. They swept the Fighting Illini, Illinois, yesterday. They're now 23-0. Unbelievable. Number 1 team in the nation. Give a shout out to Andy Jackson, had 9 kills. You guys know, go back to the episode 200. I talked about it. I mentioned all these vocabulary, love vocabulary. Harper Murray and Adriano, right? She had 8 kills. They each had 8 kills. So you got 9 kills for Jackson, Murray, and Adriano, 8 kills. And how about the amazing Lanny Choboy, the libero? She had 20 digs, I'll tell you. Talk about pancake of the year. She's amazing. So, hey, congrats to them. And tonight I'm going to be watching. There's a couple of big games tonight. We have Who's there? Penn State's ranked 25. They're playing Purdue is ranked 9. That's going to be a good game. Watching Michigan plays Rutgers right after that. Going to watch that. And then you got Iowa plays Indiana. Indiana right here, right down the street. They're number 18. So way to go. And by the way, the Cornhuskers had 488 hit percentage, which is like insane, guys. So there you go. So the couple congrats there. And, let's see what time is. A couple minutes here. Ed's going to come on. But before I do that, let's talk about this. Let me see if I get my, yeah, I like these whips. All right. So we're going to be talking about how to transform your business stories into powerful marketing assets that establish credibility, improve your search rankings, and generate leads. It's called Proof Stacking. Ed wrote a book on it. Like I said, Ed and I go way back. Give you a quick little story. It was 1994. I walked into the office of Massey Knackle Realty Services. This was New York City. It was a boutique, I guess, building sales firm, small to mid-sized buildings at the time. The average was maybe like $2 million. Hey, back in the 90s, things sold for $2 million that now sell for probably 20, 25 million. So tough time to sell buildings. I mean, it would take, I get stories in my memoir. For those of you who read it, there's a chapter called 68 called Learn from the Best. And Bob Knackle, give a shout out to Knack. He was the best. He still is the best. And I know Ed does business with him with the proof stacking. So we're going to learn about that. Also, we're going to talk about case studies. And he's going to be coming on any minute now. I think he's going to hit the link. Once he hits the link I sent him, he's going to be on live. But we're going to be talking about that because that's what it's all about in business today, right? It's about visibility. Going back to my Kellogg days, and there was a book, one of my professors, Marty Stoller, rest in peace. He taught at Class Communications. He read a book. It's on my bookshelf here, right there, High Visibility. So back in the day, you didn't have the internet, right? That was 1988, 89. I took his course. He passed away at a young age. But high visibility is the key. And the book was all about how do you achieve high visibility. So, we're going to be talking about that because that's something of concern today for most businesses. And there's a lot of competition. Here we go now. Hey, Ed.
RT, what's going on?
All right. Guys, say hello to Edward J. Winslow. Ed Winslow here.
Great to be here.
Great. Thanks for coming on. And I'm not sure if there's a delay. You see a delay in this little?
I can't tell on my end. It looks pretty awesome.
Okay, good. Last host we have. Look at that. You got New York in the background there, right?
Yeah.
Empire.
Yeah.
Empire State
some changes going on in New York.
Massive changes going on in New York. Yeah. Before we get started, we just mentioned that Ed's the founder and CEO. What's your take on the new mayor, Ed?
Oh man, I don't think it's what New York, like New York's an amazing place. It's an amazing city. New York exists for business. Right. That's what it's all about. New York is all about business. And you want to do all the things that are positive for the environment, and for the people. And it's all about, the good things for the people. And, like one of the things that Mondami ran on, was, affordability, and all the things that you're doing are not going to be affordable. I mean, if you're going to restrict, rent increases and things like that, like right now you've got a massive amount of rent stabilized and controlled apartments that are not being rented. I mean, I think there's over 100,000 units that are not being rented.
Wow.
Vacant because there's no incentive for the owner to rent it because they can't increase the rent.
Right.
Well, so now you have 100,000 units that are not being rented.
Right.
You want to make things more affordable? Incentivize the owners,
right,
so that they renovate their space, and it'll drop the price.
Right.
Incentivize more development, drop the price, make it more affordable for everybody by implementing capitalism.
Right.
Not
increasing competition, so to speak. of those
Yeah.
units. Increase the make them the better. Increase the competition, driving the price, therefore driving the prices down rather than keeping them off the market, which is what he's going to promote, right?
Listen, I think I think that you have to try and work with a system that pulls people up rather than pulls other people down.
Pushes them or keeps them down, right?
And that's
Artificially
I think
depressing.
I think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see people moving out of the city.
And what impacts is that going to have on real estate values, which so much of New York is about real estate and the values and what's the future of the city? What do you think? People heading to Florida? Everybody's heading maybe.
You're going to take a risk and open up, put all your life. Think about it. You're going to, let's say you and I wanted to start a deli. We came up with this amazing deli idea. You're going to risk your money to open up a retail location, hire people, do all the things to run a business, and they're fighting against you.
Mm. No, it's going to deter.
I think that's the issue. Like, would you open up? Let's say it's a franchise. Let's say I was to give you, let's say I was to give you, $500,000. And I'm going to put the gun to your head and say, look, you're going to open up this franchise. It works everywhere in the country. I'm going to finance you. You go in and you do this. But if you don't make money, if you lose the money, I'm going to put a bullet in your head.
Right.
Yeah, that's your risk, right?
You're not doing that deal, right? I'm not going to New York.
Are you going to go into New York and that
Hell
deal?
no.
Okay.
No,
you're not.
No, it makes it more challenging. I hear what you said. Socialism in New York City, right? That socialism does not work in New York City.
I think it's going to create a ripple effect. I think you're going to start to, the problem that I see is that, if you believe in communism, it's a great thing.
Right.
But if you don't, you got a problem, because what I think people fail to see is that what it's going to do, it's going to enable all these others. It's going to bring all these others that are sort of suppressed and never wanted to use the word communism.
Right.
You're going to see it start being used in Boston, in Washington, D.C., in LA, and all these different cities all over the place. All of a sudden, they're going to be following Mandami. And that's, so it's like, what I see with Mandami is that you just took a big rock and threw it into a pond. And boom, you have this big splash, and now there's this ripple going through the
major ripple effect.
And I think so. If you think communism is the solution, well, you just hired the right guy.
Well, I don't think communism is the solution, without a doubt. Not in this country. I mean, what about
anywhere? I don't think but you got it now. You got it.
Right.
You got it. They just elected the guy.
They elected him. Let's see if he's the future. Talking about is the future of the Democratic Party. I don't know. I mean, I don't think so.
The problem is once you get these people in there, I don't think you get them out. That's the problem.
And do they ever do really? Can they do what they
say?
Well,
it gets deeper. It gets deeper. It spreads to all the municipalities and everywhere. It just gets harder and harder. It becomes more and more restrictive. And, it just forces people out. I mean, it's very difficult now. I mean, I've heard stories about, trying to put a new light bulb in, you can't do it, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know. There'll probably be some good things.
Yeah.
The one thing that probably will happen is that I mean, I would think that the residential development might do well, because you're going to have less supply.
Right. Oh, because
they're putting a cap on certain. So free market.
So new development's not going to be subject to the same rent stabilization, you're saying. So the older properties that are being left unrented, then the new ones will. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, the area up on, it's like it's in the low 90s, going down into the 80s, over like on 3rd Avenue.
East side. I lived over the 81st and 1st.
There are buildings over there. There are buildings over there. Those 5-story buildings with the retail on the ground floor that are sitting there vacant. They've been vacant for years because you can't rent them. You're not going to rent them.
They're not rentable because And let's explain that, because these owners now, they own the properties cash, right? Because they, over the years, most of the owners in New York City, right, to even own a building. I was just saying, I was selling buildings on East 22nd Street for $2 million back in the mid 90s. Remember that? What,
Yeah,
20
yeah,
million now?
yeah.
Right. So they've taken all their money out, right? Anyone who's purchased the property maybe over the years. So they really don't have any risk to keep it vacant, right? It's like, why they don't need the excess capital? Why, think about it. Someone watching might say, well, why would you keep a unit vacant if you can get even 1,000 or 2,000 out of it? But what they don't understand is you can't ever raise the rent, right? So it's like, well, why?
Well, some of these
What?
buildings have retail on the ground floor. So the retail, so if you're some of these people in New York are really wealthy. They own a
Yeah,
lot of buildings.
right,
And, maybe your retail is, paying, whatever, $100 a foot in rent, or 300,
right,
or whatever the
right.
number is. And
It supports the building. So
so
the
it's
retail carries the building. So what's the point of putting someone in there at a rent that you can't even raise?
right.
Is
And
what you're
someday, if they change the laws, so you hang on to the building, it doesn't
right,
really cost you anything. You might be
right,
making a little bit, like a little yield on that.
right,
But someday, if they say, you know what, this whole thing we tried doesn't work, we're going to let the landlords go and rehab these buildings and charge whatever they want.
right, right.
And boom, the value of the building pops.
Right. Pops. Right.
So,
Or when he gets replaced in when the next
I mean, I
election,
think
if
that's what they need to do in New York. I mean, you've
interesting.
got to you got to let things flow.
Right.
You got to let things flow. It's like a tree.
Free market. It's got to be
Like
free
I
market.
look like I'm sitting up here in Connecticut. I'm looking outside, right, and I have all these trees
Right.
all around me, right, and the trees keep growing over my yard and fighting for the sun.
Right.
And the
Right.
ones that are strong are growing bigger and bigger, and they're putting shade
Right.
on the smaller ones. So the
Right.
smaller ones are not doing anything. They're trying
Right.
to survive,
Right.
but they're
Right.
not really working.
Pure
You know,
capitalism amongst trees. The
I mean,
strong survive.
it's the
That's
same thing. It's like,
the
isn't
same
that
thing.
how it's? I mean, I think
Well,
that's how the world works. I think if you try and control people, you know,
it doesn't
look at what
work.
we're doing. Like right
Oh
here,
yeah.
we're entrepreneurs.
Right.
We're trying to make things happen. We're trying to be creative and utilize the best that we've got in us,
Right.
and and let us flourish. Don't hold me back. If I
Right.
fail, I fail.
Yeah.
But if you're going to hold me back, it's going to be harder and harder. And I think it just takes away from the greatness of human beings by restricting.
Right.
I think that's
Well, let me just make a reference to, I subbed the past 5 years, or not the past 5 years, but going back to like 29, I did 5 years of substitute teaching, right? And I'll never forget this one class, and I write about this in my book. Um, so I go up in the classroom and I say, I was teaching biology. I remember this, right? And it was a long-term assignment. So I took care of their grades. So I was the person that was going to take them till the end of the year. And I was their teacher and I had to give them grades. So I said, and I knew like this particular school, these kids weren't, none of these kids are going to college, unfortunately, maybe 2 or 3 out of the whole school. So I said to these kids, I said, here's what we're going to do. I said, I'm going to give 1/3 A's, 1/3 B's, and 1/3 C's. I said, the only way you're going to fail my class is if you do not show up and you just participate every day. There's not going to be any homework. So every day I would give 10 bullet points. And we're going to talk about that with you. You're really key on bullet points. And I was
sure.
key on it. I said, I'll give you bullet points 2-3 times a week. We're going to do a quiz. So I'm not going to make it hard for you. All I have to do is pay attention. Just pay attention. We're going to cover things every day. You're going to learn something. And this kid raises his hand. This kid raised his hand. He said, Mister, are you saying that we have to compete with each other? I'm like, I said, listen, hey, when you go to Burger King, you're going to have to compete. What are you talking about? Life's a competition. Why don't you want to compete? I said, because if you're the person paying attention, and why not get the A? Like it's as if nobody cares. I'm sorry, but the world today, it's like everybody
Yeah,
wants
that's amazing. Well,
mediocrity.
but what people need to do is they need to help that mindset. They need to
Change
encourage
that
that
mindset,
mindset.
right?
And
Not
you know,
encourage it.
it was really interesting. I'll tell you an interesting. I mean, what you just said is really interesting, and it gives me like I got a phone call the other day from somebody, a mutual friend, who had a daughter who's in high school,
right,
and is an athlete and is trying to get an internship at some professional program, sports program,
right,
and also get into college.
Mm.
And they said, "Can your success story program help my daughter?"
Mm.
And I'm like, "Absolutely.
Mm.
Let's think about this."
Right.
And I said, let me do a little due diligence. Let me come back to you. So I did a little due diligence. I came back with this like PDF, and it said, what we need to do is we need to take, what your daughter has achieved, not general, very, very specific things. And let's go through, take little snapshots of things that she's achieved, like maybe going into high school, trying out for the new team. What did she feel like?
Right.
What were her concerns? Let's isolate that moment in time and how she felt and how she overcame that, because she moved on from that and did well. So why don't we break this down and start creating these little
show the challenge and the success is what you're saying. Show the challenge and the success.
But every single student has that same thing, and they may not be aware of the character traits that are really strong within them, because everybody's different.
Right.
So now what we're doing is we're using this method to create a portfolio of success.
Right.
Over time. But really, it's not about the, I scored all these goals. It's more about the character of the person that scored those goals. What enabled you to score those goals?
Right. Well, it's telling a story. It's telling this personal story of that person. Right.
So if you start to put together a portfolio of these success stories, and it's always the same structure, right? It's a little headline.
Right.
Like these are one pagers. They're like baseball
cards. Right. Baseball. I like that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's the headline. It's who you are.
Right.
What did I, bullet point 1, bullet point 2, bullet point 3. Here's what I achieved in this little snapshot of my life. Here's another one. Here's another one. And you do this over time. And all of a sudden, what's going to happen with that student is they're going to start to become self-aware of what they're going to be like, oh, wow. Like that, the student who is in your biology class who's saying, we have to compete.
Right.
Well, really, it's like, okay, kid, let's talk about you. Right? Let's talk about you. Let's talk about, let's create a snapshot of a time when you might have competed. Is there a time? How about when you were 3 years old and you wanted to jump on the swing on the playground, and there were only 2 swings and there were 5 kids? How did you,
what I mean? How did you successfully navigate to create a story? That's that part of the story.
Right. And so over time, so it's sort of an interesting exercise. And part of the thing that what's great about AI today is that you can learn about yourself. You can learn what you're good at, and you can start to look at yourself and say, oh my gosh, I'm really, really good at this. I have these unique characteristics that I never thought of. I was never self-aware, but now I am. And so I can create these little success stories over and over, and I can put it together, print it out, get it bombed out, hand it to somebody. I want to get a job. I want to go into college, or I want to get, do whatever you want to achieve in life. But now you at least know that you've succeeded in certain things.
I like what you just said, self-awareness, because it's like 2 sides of the coin. It's the one side saying, this is how I differentiate myself from everybody else. This is what but at the same point, you're also learning about yourself, which is also creating confidence, which is
absolutely
right. Self-awareness, which is creating confidence. Well, yeah, that's like, I'll tell you, for those watching now, we go way back, right? What was it, 1994? Let me just say, so Ed, at the time, he was like, well, there was the 2 guys that owned it, right? Bob Knackle, Paul Massey at the time. I mentioned it, right? And then Ed was like the #1 guy. You were like the number. Oh, look at that newsletter. Holy cow.
See, we were doing this back then.
Holy cow. Oh, right.
We were creating.
So let me give him a little background.
Each one of these is a little mini story.
Yeah,
We were
mini
doing
story.
this years ago. We just weren't aware of what we were doing.
We weren't aware of it, right? Well, I came in and I knew I became. Well, the first thing was you were a neighborhood expert, so you had to take this sort of square block area, boom, and that became your area. I remember when, Bob says to me, he's like, well, nobody ever really sold below 23rd Street. You had sold one or two buildings, I think, below 23rd Street prior to me getting there. And then I took that market from 14th to 23rd, from 6th Avenue over to 1st Avenue, right? My little section. And then, and it was all about creating these mini success stories. And then it's like even putting a sign on the building. You start with one, then it's two. The next thing you know, you get 22 listings. And we were exclusive listings brokers back in the day. We didn't really work on that buy side, remember?
I want to try and find. I'm looking for something that I want to show you, which is really. I don't know where I did with it. But
well.
But
so
anyway,
Ed was like the top dog of the minions, we called it. There were the two guys that owned it, and then we were like the minions or the guys that were the support staff. They were the lead actors, and we were the supporting actors. But we had a great little crew. Remember Jimmy V? I remember I was thinking back to the seating chart. All right, remember there was Christy, Bob. There was Christy, Bob. You were on that side. It was Christy, Bob, you, Paul, and V on that one side, Jimmy V. And over here, there was Mark, me, John Serralo, Nat Rocket, and who else? I was missing somebody. Is there one other person? Rocket Man, me,
maybe Nate. What was his name?
Nate. That was Nat Rocket.
Nate Rocket.
No, it was Nat Rocket. So it was Mark, me, John, Nat. I thought there was one other person. I don't remember.
There was another guy named Kevin Salmon that came in.
Yeah, there was Kevin Salmon. You're right. It was Kevin, because I was like, who's the guy? Now I remember there was one guy, because there was only 10 of us in this little. Remember, we used to play hockey at night. And then we went to the second floor.
That was a great. That was an amazing.
4080 East 50th Street. Remember 4080 East 50th, right down from the what's the church there? The cathedral.
St. Patrick's?
St. Patrick's Cathedral was right down the street. I'll never forget that place. Man, I loved it. I remember the first day we used to drop the keys out the window. Remember? Guys, we had this office where you had to go through. What was the ground floor space? You had to go through someone's retail space.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. There were so many
elevator.
There were so many wild stories about, from back in the day. I remember, because we were, it was a real startup in New York. I mean, it was a startup firm. And, so I remember we were in one building, and it was, maybe it was that 4080 East 50th Street. And like up on I never knew what was up above us. Yeah. But one morning I come in and I'm standing there by the elevator. And this is like a real rickety old New York elevator in a dumpy New York building.
I think it had the gate even.
So anyway, I'm waiting there for the elevator. I just commuted in from New Jersey to, here I am. I'm ready to slug it out in the streets of New York, trying to sell some real estate. And the door opens.
Right.
And 8 of these big, heavy women walk out. And what it turns out, they were all over me. What they did was they just finished the shift from like midnight till 8 a.m, and they had a porno line. And this like was pre-internet. So people are calling like 1-800-GET-SEX or something like that. And these women are talking sex all night long. So people call, like, maybe I think it was like a 900 number, and you pay
in that building.
And these women are just like, they're talking sex, I guess, all night. Right. When I opened the door, they were all keyed up from all this all night. Oh my God, it was crazy. But that's a little story from.
Holy cow. I don't remember. I just remember we used to go up to the floor above, because we ended up renting it. We had to grow, right? And then we played hockey. I'm going to give you a story that you may not know, but so I was living at the time. I remember Nat Rocket got me the interview with the owner of a building on 55th Street, right near Columbus Circle. It was awesome. It was a basement unit, I remember, and I was there for I was paying $900 for a floor through. Oh my God, it's unbelievable. And then the guy, I don't know what happened. 6 months later, he's like, you got to leave because my sister's coming back. You got to take the unit. So I end up living in the office. I don't know if anybody knew this, but I didn't have a place for 3 months.
I remember that. Oh my gosh.
So I filled up the closet with all my I remember Jimmy V one time comes to me, he's like, dude, are you living in it? So I would literally work until 7. I always waited for Bob to leave. Everybody left. It was 7:15, right? I'd be the last one. You know me. I worked like a dog back then. And I would go to the gym, right? It was the New York Racket Club was right there. Shower, I'd come back at 9 o'clock. And then I would sleep on that couch. Remember that black leather couch in the back room?
I remember that. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Then 3 in the morning.
Yes.
I wake up. I go back to the gym. So here I am sitting at my desk every day at 7 a.m. Nobody knew. I don't think anybody knew until 3 months later. Jimmy V's like, dude, are you living in the office? I'm like, I don't. Can you believe that? I don't know if Bob ever knew that. I slept on that couch for 3 months.
Wow, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That was an amazing time in life. There were a lot of stories that came out of that whole thing.
That was fun.
And the thing that's amazing is that I'm back working with NACL again.
No, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Well, hey, in my book, right, my memoir, chapter 68, it's called Learn from the Best. I sat I told Bob when he hired me, I'm like, Nac, I'm sitting right across from you because I want to learn. And I did. He was the best. He was the best back in 1994. So of course, I mean, again, kudos, give a shout out to Nac. But yeah, that was, I learned from the best because that's the key. You want to learn from the best. So you're now still working with the best, right? I know he's killing it over there with the new firm and all that. But hey, let me get into this because I want to talk about a little bit about what I saw on your website. Aside from the book, you have a book out, Proof Stacking, right? But you talk about case study insights, right? These one-page case. Hey, guys, take a look. Buy yourself this book. I did. It's on Amazon, Proof Stacking. It's on my list, DJ. I know I kind of been through the website. You and I talked so much. But you talk about doing these one-page case studies to establish trust and transparency, right? And then you also explain how to write case studies, how to market them, and you talk about success stories. So talk a little bit about what proof stacking is and how do you guide people through it with the book? I mean, you touch upon it on the website, guys. Proofstacking.ai is the website. So tell me a little bit about that.
So it's really interesting. And it came from, working with you and Bob and all that. It came from that background. We never, I was never aware of what we were. We just did this. We created newsletters. We wrote articles. We did all this stuff. We were content marketers back then. And we really, before the internet, we were doing content marketing before there was such a thing as content marketing.
Right.
And so what I did was, gosh, it's such an interesting story. So, years ago, if you remember in 1992, I sold a building. I wrote a little story about the building that was down at Gramercy Park. I sent it into the New York Times. And remember, Christy typed it up because I didn't know how to type.
I was there in 94 because remember, you're the only guy. I sold 4 Gramercy Park West, but you were the only one who sold them. Yeah, that's right. That was one of the
So projects. I sold 11 Gramercy Park. And what I did was I went back to the office. So I'm like, back then we had no money.
Right.
I sell this building. I'm walking back to the office. I'm elated. I want to go out for drinks, but I don't have any money. But I got this check in my pocket from the closing, like 80 grand or something like that. It was big, and it was like so much money at the time.
Yeah, at the time.
And I'm walking back to the office because I don't even have money for a cab. Wow. And I'm like really, really excited. But as I'm walking back, as I'm getting closer to the office, it's dawning on me, I was the only one and 2 lawyers that were at the closing. The seller wasn't there. The buyer didn't show.
Wow.
It was just a closing, and it was this dumpy office. It was a law office. And I'm walking back to the office. I'm like, how do I get the word out? Like nobody knows I sold this building.
Right.
I got to I got to let people know I sold this building because I want to show them that I can sell these buildings.
Right.
And so what I did was I went back, I took a white sheet of clean copy paper and I jotted down the key points about the building. Not so much like brokery stuff, like how big it was or wide it was, but I went into the story of it, the history of the building. It was owned by a composer, famous composer, going back to the late 1800s. The guy owned it for like 60 years. And it was, you had next to the National Art Society and things like that. So and Jelly Bean Benitez bought the building.
Yeah. Madonna's producer. Yeah.
Right. So I wrote this little story about it. And I was and I had Christy type it up. I took an image of the building.
Right.
I popped it in an 8x11 envelope. I wanted it to be big, so I wanted to get some attention. And I sent it to the New York Times.
Right. One page. Yeah.
One page.
Yeah.
And they published it on the front page of the New York Sunday New York
No
Times
way.
real estate section.
Wow.
I have it here somewhere.
Wow.
Where it is.
Holy cow. I don't remember. Yeah, I never heard this story.
But anyway, so that was like really amazing. They didn't even change one word.
Boom.
They never called me to even verify it. Front page of the Sunday real estate section, I got a quarter page. Boom.
Wow.
And that's what launched me, right?
Yeah.
And what I did was unknowingly I had created a little template, a little story form template.
Right.
And I talked about the neighborhood, the history of the building, the music scene and how that applied, and how this guy bought the building from some guy who was going to develop it into condos, but this Jelly Bean is going to restore it into the theme of the neighborhood, which is like, and so it came out, it was like, the way I did it was I broke it down into little bullet points. Once I had the bullet points on a piece of paper, I was like, oh, okay, let me reorganize these. And then I just filled in the blanks. And I created this story. I banged it out in like half an hour. Christy types it up, send it to the New York Times. They publish it. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And
you're on the map.
Jimmy V called me on a Sunday. He calls me up. He says, "Hey, Junior." He called me Junior.
Right?
He said, "Junior, did you see the New York Times?" And I'm like, no. I run out and get the Times, and I open it up. It's like, oh my gosh, my life's going to change.
Wow.
And so I did it again 9 months later. And then I did it 10 years later. Now I had left New York real estate. I'm on my own. I buy this property in Stamford, Connecticut, an old Victorian.
I know yes. You renovated that property.
And so I'm during the renovation, and half the units I got everybody out. I got all the tenants out of the building.
Beautiful
restoring the building. Half the units are complete. The other half are under construction. I invite the top residential brokers to look at the property. And they all come in and they're like, "This is amazing what you're doing, but you're never going to sell them. Nobody's going to buy these."
I remember that. Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, okay.
You called me to buy that. You're like, you should buy this, move into the building. Remember?
Yes.
You're like, you should move in. And I'm like, yeah, but it's vacant. It's like, it was vacant. Like, what am I going to do?
Anyway, what I did was I had a website built. I took a little course on search engine optimization. And I also wrote a little article following this same format, following this template. And so this is a process of things going on. And what happened was I got ranked on the search engines. I ended up getting like bidding wars, and I ended up selling out all the units. And I ended up doing really well.
And
I kept doing that over and over. I ended up building this business by chance. I never knew, didn't know what a marketing agency was. And I ended up with this business. People just kept calling me saying, "Can you do this for me?" And then what happened was the internet started to become more competitive. And what I found was I still could get the results on Google, but it was like they weren't converting as well. It wasn't producing the quality of buyer. And at that point, I sort of lucked out, and I created this little success story for a client, a painting contractor out on the West Coast. And he had painted this metal fuel tank. And so what I was like, well, he told me the story about it and how big it was. I'm like, well, would you like to get more of that business? And he said, yeah. He said, I made a ton of money on that. It was like a 30-foot tank. It had sandblasted or something and painted. It was sort of an interesting thing. And I wrote this little story following the same model, the same template from the New York Times. That if you do a search for metal tank painters in Oregon, you're going to see that thing ranking.
This guy. Wow.
It went live December 15th, 2015. It's still right at the top of the
10
search.
years ago. Wow.
He's brought in millions of dollars from that. And what I found was that rather than just creating regular content, now let's start following the success story model.
Mm.
And it just kept working and working and working. And it's like, why does this thing work?
Right.
I never, like, I didn't get it. It's like, because people are saying, I'm trying to explain it to people.
Right.
And gosh,
So 20 years ago,
okay,
then
so
10 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened was I wanted to create a course to teach people how this worked. And I'm like,
Right.
I don't know what to call it. I couldn't explain it to anybody.
Right.
And so I took I read this, Eugene Schwartz, amazing marketing book.
Right.
So hard to read. I went through that and I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand these tactics.
Mm.
I still couldn't explain it. And this is an interesting thing. I'm gonna show you this. This book right here, great for everybody.
Nobody wants to read your shit. Nobody wants to read your shit. Okay.
By Steve Pressfield. Now,
Steve Pressfield. Wasn't he the producer or like a Hollywood guy?
He's got an amazing story. He tells the story here, but he was a writer.
Okay.
And he wrote War of Art.
Yes, that's where I know him
from. He wrote
from.
The Legend of Bagger Vance.
Bagger Vance, right. That's
okay.
right. Yeah.
But
right.
This is a fascinating book for anybody today. Wow. Because he gets into the storytelling structure.
Right.
But there's I'm going to tell you something. This is really amazing. So because I was ready to give up on creating my course because I couldn't come up with a name. I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, I'm trying. I was part of this mastermind group. I spent like $6,000 to go to this 2-day thing one day. Wow. With all these world-class marketers, people that write for like infomercials.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna learn from them. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna have this thing nailed.
Right.
And I didn't.
Right.
Steve Pressfield spoke at this thing, and I got this book.
Nice. Wow.
And I came back and I'm sitting there and I'm like so discouraged. I cannot figure this out. I got the book and I took the book and I put it down and I used it as a mouse pad for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And finally, one day, it's like one afternoon, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I got to quit, man. I can't keep trying. I'm not getting where I just don't have what it takes.
Right.
So I was really frustrated. And so I was like, I just picked up the book, sitting there under my mouse pad. I never opened it.
Right.
And I opened it and I read page 1. I'm like, every page is a chapter. Like, look at that.
I see.
So I started to read through this and I'm like, okay, the theme is, would you read what you just wrote?
I see.
The theme of the book.
Would you read what you just wrote? So basically, keep it short and sweet. It's what you're really getting to, because if it goes on and on.
So here's what happened. So I read through the book, like you can see my little notepads. I see all over there. And I'm breaking it down into like little bullet points like I did back in the day with the New York Times thing.
Right.
And so then I started to get into like the Steve Pressfield head. Like I started to think like, oh man, it's like I'm sitting inside his brain looking at how he's breaking down this book. And I started to understand, and he tells this amazing story about storytelling. And he talks about the Rocky movie. And he said, this is like one of the greatest scenes in history, because he said, storytelling has got act 1, act 2, act 3.
Beginning, a middle, and an end.
You have to have an insightful moment. You have to have a climax built into the insightful moment. You have to have a hero and a villain. I'm like, okay. I'm starting to understand this a little bit. And he tells a story about Rocky. And he said, that scene when Rocky's walking up the stairs, Apollo had already chosen him as, we're going to give this chump a shot at the title, right? That's one of the lines.
When he was in the stadium, you're saying? Is that what you're talking about?
No, this is during the workout. So during the movie, in the beginning, he gets chosen out of the blue by
Got it.
He starts going through this workout thing.
The workout regime, and he goes up the rocky steps, you're saying, for the first time?
There's a scene where he's walking up the stairs into his dingy apartment late at night after working out. Yeah. He's with Adrian at the time. Remember Adrian, the girlfriend?
Yeah. That's
and Adrian's sort of asleep, and he walks upstairs and he's got his leather jacket on, his black pants. He looks like a hood.
When he sits on the edge of the bed with her, you're saying?
He lies down next to her and he says,
"Oh, right."
He says, "I can't win.
I can't win." Yes.
And she said, "Well, what are you going to do?"
Right.
And he said, "Well, nobody's ever gone 15 rounds with the champ.
Right.
If I can still be standing at the end, I can prove to the guys in the neighborhood I'm not the bum they thought I was."
Right.
And that right there, that was the insightful moment and the climax all built in at that moment. Right. Like the music starts to play.
Yeah. That's when he starts training.
And the rest of the movie goes and it leads right up to the end.
Yeah.
And, Adrian walks in and he's like,
Yeah.
And that's the story. And so I'm like, okay, now I sort of understand this.
The insightful moment. I love that. Yeah. When he gets in bed, he's like, I can't win.
Now I'm like, okay, all right. I understand hero and villain. I understand that this is what I need to do. And now I'm starting to think about the success stories. Why do the success stories work? Why do they produce like these magical results, which is they do. They produce magic. And I'm like, I started to realize you got to do it over and over. You got to stack them. But I still couldn't explain it until I got to page 171. And I'm going to read this to you.
Yeah, read 171.
There is an evil force that is constantly defeating us and bringing naught to all our dreams. Let's name that force, accept it as our enemy, and figure out how to overcome it. And when I read that, it just connected with me. And I started to look at it and say, okay, I understand the storytelling. I understand the hero and villain. Now I'm looking at what is the evil force that prevents us from getting what we want? If you're trying to sell something, what's holding you back?
In here?
And what I realized is that, okay, proof. So what went on in my mind, I get it. Like the success stories create proof. The proof creates trust. But what's on the other side of that? Why does it create trust? What does it do? What's that evil force? And then I started to realize it's like the evil force is doubt. It's skepticism.
Yeah, it's up in here.
So then what I did was like, oh, I get it. I get it. So consumer doubt is the issue. That's what holds us back from everything we want in life. So when we're dealing with somebody, they're looking at us and saying,
oh, you're talking about consumer doubt, not inside doubt.
Consumer doubt.
Oh, it's what holds you back is the doubt of the consumer. I see what you're saying.
Right. And it doesn't matter whether you're trying to get a job or you're trying to sell something.
Right.
And so then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to create so a person who doubts is a doubter. So I created a character called the doubter. And I started to think, oh my gosh, my kids used to watch this Polar Express when they were little. And it was all about this kid. They called him the doubter because he wanted to believe in Santa. But he was getting to that age where it's like, do I still believe? Is it real?
Right.
And he goes on this whole journey and he sees proof after proof after proof after proof until he finally meets Santa. And it wasn't until then, like, and all these other people were already convinced, but he wasn't sure until he needed to see the real proof.
Right.
And what I realized is, like, I looked at this and I watched the movie over and over and over. I started to take notes. Because I figured, well, these Hollywood writers know how to create a character better than me. Right. So then I started to realize, okay, one of the scenes in the movie was where this Tom Hanks plays this character. And he said to the kid, the doubter, he said, I know you. You're just like me. You're a doubter. You want to believe. You get bamboozled, do you? And that was, and I'm like, okay, now I understand it. So now I started to understand there are all these character traits that the consumer has, like, I don't want to get ripped off. I'm not sure if this is right for me. I don't know if you're the right one for me. Maybe they're distracted by somebody else, that throws them off. And so that's when I started to realize that, okay, you can't just create. So now I know that the one-page case study model works.
Right.
Now I start to understand how to structure the layout of the page, because I'm using these pages to do the selling for me.
Right. Right.
And that's what you need to do on the internet, like, because you're trying to use content to get in front of the right people that will convert, not just content that they find, but something
Right.
that will convert.
Right.
And
Right.
it's the real story. It goes back to the baseball card concept.
Right. Right.
And so that's when I was like, oh my gosh, it's all about proof stacking, how to overcome consumer doubt, create trust, and get more clients than you can handle. And it's true, it works.
Right.
And that became the book.
That became proof stacking. Right.
That
Stacking
became
the proof.
model.
Right.
And now it's a mechanism. And one of the first people who bought into it was Napa.
Yeah, I see it here. It's 12 reasons bullet points help real estate brokers get exclusive listings. And Knackle's the first guy you list. And there's another Joe DeLandro is another one. But success stories build unshakable trust, is what you say.
Yeah.
And that's the key, because Knack has sold like 2,500 buildings or something, right? I don't even know the numbers, like 25.
Yeah, but this is the thing that all of us can do. This goes back to what you were starting the conversation about, the kid in your biology class.
Right.
Imagine if you could go back to that kid and say, hey, man, tell me about you.
Right.
Tell me about you and your life. Tell me about things that you've done. Tell me about what it was like when you learned how to ride your bike or learned how to ride a skateboard.
Right.
How did you do that? Are you
Interesting.
Good well, I'm really good at skateboarding. Oh, really?
It's funny you say that. He was a skateboarder and he carried around a skateboard. So he was like the resident skateboard. It's funny you say that. Like because all he wanted to do was skateboard. He'd be jumping things in school. And I was but he didn't want to do biology, but he wanted to, but you're right. That's a success. That's stacking. It's interesting.
Imagine if you could sit there with that kid and say, I want to know what attracted you to the skateboard? What was it like when you first got on the skateboard? Like, you probably fell or you probably tried different things until you finally got better. And then you could start doing little things. You could put your foot down and the board would come up and you could move it around. And then maybe you went down hills and maybe you did jumps. And why did you keep doing that? Because you wanted to get better. You liked this. You had something in you that drove you to be better. I want to know more about that. Because then you can create this self-awareness for this kid where nobody's ever pulled this out of him.
Nobody's ever done that. So now that gives him the more power to succeed in this class, which is something different than skateboarding, but it's still, why not take this approach like you did with the skateboard? It's not that hard. Well, let me digress, because you got me thinking. Now, this is my 12th live stream. All right, I'm gonna kind of turn it inward here, because we never had this conversation. So this goes back, the first time, it was 2006, right? I had taken my first acting class, was like February, right? But then in November, somebody invited me on some radio show. It was like Long Island, some community college on Long Island. And anyway, I go into the basement. I remember there's like 3 girls that had this show, and I was on the radio, but I loved it. Like, I loved something about it that kind of, and then years later, flash forward, I went and did the Hollywood thing. But then in 2014, actually, I found this guy, Sam, who owned LA Talk Radio. And it was pay to play pretty much. You pay him, but you get like an hour. And I'm like, Sam, I want to do this. I want to do this. And then boom. So that was the first iteration of Tola Talks. It's kind of like, I love the radio. I loved the live. I loved it even more than going to auditions and kind of playing that, speaking other people's words. I just loved my words and interviewing people. So I did that, but then it got like too costly, because it was like, anyway, but then I moved it to YouTube. So long story short, this is like the 3rd or 4th I did Tola Talks. Then I moved it to YouTube. Then I did Tola Talks 2.0. Then I did Tola Talks Texas. But I keep coming back to what I love to do, interviewing people, talking, my own voice, and hopefully inspiring people. But it's always about education. That's like the basis for me. I want to educate people. So this is number 12, right? And I've had 2 guests. There's a police officer, buddy of mine, and you're my second out of the 12. So but the goal is to interview maybe once a week. So because what is the goal here with me, and what do you see as proof stacking, just to turn it? How do you see, because I'm not selling to consumers, really. I'm giving this away for free. I'm not really trying to make money off the show. But what do you see as like a proof stacking? Sorry, guys, for the Ed, your visual keeps kind of tuning in and out, but you hear your voice clearly. So what do you think?
Well, I think what we just went through for the last half hour, 45 minutes is storytelling.
Is what?
Storytelling.
Storytelling, right.
Right. We just went through what we're doing is we're telling stories. I mean, you're telling a story about how your acting career. We talked about, your background, working down on 22nd Street, or
right.
the thing over in Columbus Circle. These are all little isolated success stories or case studies, or whatever you want to call them. They're little mini micro stories.
Right.
And when you create micro stories like that, people lean in. They like the story. It's it's the story that sells. It's and what you're doing. And I see you doing this all the time. And I've seen you doing it for years. You're always telling a story.
Right.
And that's what keeps people engaged. And to be able to be self-aware of these micro stories. Like there was that little micro story I told about, we're working in the building. I push the elevator button, and all these girls come out that have been talking on the sex line all night, and they're like, and they're hooting and hollering at me. I felt, that's a little micro success story.
Hey, let me give you, because I want to give a shout out.
But that's what I think. That's what I see. Right. That's what I see you doing on this. Your podcast. You're a storyteller.
I'm a storyteller, but then
whether you know it or not,
out to the masses. I mean, we'll talk after the show, but I want to give, because you bring this up, and I remember Jim Ventura, Jimmy V, Jim, everybody, of course we go way back, and you and Jimmy V were the best, because when I first started in the business, it was impossible to get hired, right? Remember, it took 3 years for me to sell that building on 11 East 22nd Street. It was
a tough time.
Tough time. So Jimmy V gives me 2 listings. I'll never forget. 22 West 30th Street, which talk about rent stabilized. It was the other, rent controlled. They were paying like $400 a month for each floor, and a bank owned it. And Jimmy V had the listing for since he started with the firm. So he gives me that listing, and he gives me another one in the Village. Well, that was the first story that got me started, because I had something to talk about, right? So I want to give a shout out to Jimmy V for giving me, I sold the one. I never did sell the one in the Village. I don't know when it sold. I never sold it, and then I went on. So I just want to give a shout out to V, and remember the horses and all that. Oh my God, we go back. I have more stories. It was it's funny.
Yeah.
But getting back to this Tola. So you're saying these are already stories, but then how do you capture, for me, a wider audience, right? And the whole concept of getting
I think you know what it is. I think really it's a form of storytelling, and just being aware of that everything that you talk about is like a little micro story. So if you can isolate it almost like a baseball card in a way, but and if you look at it and say every single story is like another episode in my Netflix series. So if you look at what you're doing as a Netflix series, and you break it down into these mini stories, now what you're doing is you're putting the stories together. And when you interview people, you can direct that. So now you're getting them to tell their story.
Right.
And so, you think about, if you think about, you've had a lot of experience in the, the Hollywood movie making industry. And, you look at a movie and the clips are very short.
Right.
How long is a clip? They go from 2 seconds, 3 seconds.
2 minutes is long. Yeah. We're talking. Oh, you mean scenes? Oh, yeah. There's 100 scenes in a movie, and a movie is what?
So they keep going from clip to clip. So really, why not do that same thing in life? Because if we can break down, no matter what we want to achieve in life, if we can start to break down things into these mini micro stories, and you could do the same thing And when you start to interview people and you're aware of this model, now you're going to get little micro stories out of each person that you interview.
Right.
And you lead them along. Well, what's going to happen is like you're creating your own Hollywood movie.
Right.
One little mini clip at a time.
Right.
Same thing. And I think that's what your skill is, whether you realize it or not.
Right.
That is your
getting
skill.
people to,
You're a really good storyteller.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's.
But it's a lot of it is this self-awareness from this whole thing that evolved.
What a journey.
In New York that you and I come out of.
Oh yeah, no, it's prior to moving there. I mean, I've done a lot of things, right? I worked at Goldman Sachs, then I went back to grad school, then I worked at Drexel Burnham. Yeah, then I did international banking. I was never. It's like, okay.
You just told 4 stories, right?
I told 4 stories. And yesterday on the show, I talked about I lived in 21 US cities in the past 40 years, 3 abroad, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia. So I lived in 24 cities, Ed. Can you believe it? And in each city, like I just said before, I said, this is the 6th marathon I'm watching. I'm on the race route in Indianapolis. This is the 6th one that I've lived on the course. Who's been on the course? In Chicago, I lived on the course. I lived on Division Street. New York, I lived on First. In Las Vegas, I lived on the Strip. They run down. It's like, it's amazing. Like, just to think of, I'm very fortunate, right? But I'm also the Rolling Stone. Like, I'll go anywhere. Nope, not one person. I could land. It's like when I moved here, this guy called me, one of my father's goombas called me the other day and said, why in the world would you pick Indianapolis? Have you ever been there before? I said, no, never been here, not one time. But I wanted a drivable city, and I found I think the most drivable city in the United States. This is the smallest big city I've ever been in. There's there's 20,000 people that live downtown in downtown Indianapolis. There's 1 million people in Indianapolis. 20,000 live down, and half of them, I think, go to Purdue or IU. It's amazing, but. No, there's so many stories, but basically pulling those out of other people. I love interviewing because I'm hearing your story and we go back, but yeah.
We just told a lot of different stories here.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot of stories that you told, a lot of stories that I told. And if you break it down, if you were to take the transcript from this and you pop it into ChatGPT and say, break this down into stories.
Right.
And create 6 bullet points for each story. You're going to get all these stories.
Right.
See, that's one of the cool things about this AI.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know how it works with this platform, but, like one of the things I do a lot is like, if I create a little video on Loom,
right.
I'll take that. They have a little transcript button. I'll click the transcript. I can click copy.
Right.
And I can put it into ChatGPT and I give it the command to break it down.
Right.
And now I've isolated everything.
Right.
And when you start to do that, it's just, you start to see a way of communicating with people. And so when you understand, I don't know, what the heck did I do with Steve Pressfield's book?
Yeah.
When you start to understand the stuff in here.
Yeah.
Because this is what he's doing. Is every page like it's like almost every page is like
one page. Yeah.
Is a chapter.
Right.
And so now, because this is the way people think today, right? Everything is so isolated because of social media and little micro this and so it's all. But you and I were doing this. I mean, here's one of the newsletters.
Yeah. Back in the day
when there was no money.
Putting those back. I remember the market recap. Unbelievable.
But look at these. These are, each one of these is like a little
vignette.
Story.
Yeah.
Wow. And so what we were doing back then is really, what I did was I created this self-awareness about, like, I was like, why does this work?
Right.
And so now that I'm aware of it, and I can, and then make you aware of it.
Yeah.
Well, why would your channel work so well? Is because you are a storyteller. And just because you now have the self-awareness, you can pull stories out of others.
Right.
You pulled a lot of stories out of me today.
Tons of stories out of you today. No, you're right about that. That's what this is
And
what I
that's
enjoy doing. So
yeah,
interesting,
that's
interesting.
that's what this is all about. I mean, Hollywood
Wow.
is all about storytelling, right?
Look at this 56 minutes late. By the way, guys, before we started, I talked to Ed yesterday to say, I gotta send you the link. And I said, how long? He's like, how long does this go? And I said, well, I said, the last guy, I said, we went, I say, Ed says, we could talk for hours. I said, we could talk for hours, but we're coming up on an hour now. I like to keep it like, hey, that's amazing. But so let me finish with this. Anybody who needs to know more about Ed Winslow, you could find him on, I posted about Ed today on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. You're real big on those. Proofstacking.ai. There's a course. You could buy the course. You could read the insights, and guys, look it up. Ed Winslow, highly recommend doing business with you, Ed. And Ed is one of the honest guys out in the universe. You know, we've been in a world where there's a lot of not so honest guys, but it's for you. It's never been about just $1. You know, so kudos, Ed, for.
Yeah, you're the same way, Tulsa.
No, it's never been about that. I want to, like I said, the inspiration. It's for me, another day, another workout. All my stuff, I mean, it's been out there for free, but it's all good because it's about inspiration, man. It's right.
Yeah.
It's the journey.
Yeah.
I've had an amazing journey, and going back to our days back in New York City, man, there's just amazing memories.
Listen, it's so cool to be chatting with you because, we haven't talked in a long time.
A long time.
But it's like going back 30 years and it's no different. It's like we're hanging out the same way right now as we were back then.
Back then, let me give guys, remember the advice chair? So I got to tell you this real quick, another story. So, when you were doing Stanford, and I remember like you and I, there's a lot of things I did that just weren't a good fit. And in life, you want to find the passion, but it's got to be a good fit, right? I mean, you were a great developer. I was a great historic redeveloper, so to speak.
Yeah, I remember you were doing those deals.
Remember that?
I remember those deals. You did a bunch of deals down in Trenton and
yep. Roebling. I did a bunch of stuff, and because real estate gets in your blood. I write about that in one of my books. But Ed and I'll just give a quick little thing. So whenever him and I would we would kind of reach a point where it'd be a little bit challenging, or I would call Ed and he would say, wait a minute, let me get into the advice chair. He goes, sit in the chair. He goes, let me sit down, because you knew it was going to be like a half hour. I'm like, Ed, I was working on whatever I was working. I mean, I had more jobs than I could imagine. I'm like, this isn't working. What am I? He's like, let me get in the advice chair, and then vice versa. So we're sitting in the advice chair, giving each other advice, because sometimes you got to bounce off things. And anyway, hey, it's a great having you on the show.
I'll tell you, the advice that I have is, the proof stacking book is great because it really creates the awareness, right? About, what connects with people. Like I got deep into studying infomercials. Like I've studied infomercials. Like, why do they do it the way they do? Right. What I did was I broke infomercials down.
Really?
And I'm like, and I modeled the success stories off of how they do it on infomercials. They all do it the same way. When you start to see, you read the proof stacking, and you also read this one here, which is an easy read. This is not my book. I'm not trying to.
Man, this guy, he should pay you a royalty on that.
What you start to understand from these, these resources, and when you start to look at infomercials, like one of the ones that I use, I show this all the time to people, is the copper bullet hose. The copper bullet hose, it's the hose that, it self-coils.
Yeah. When you're done with it.
They start the scene with the husband or the wife, like pulling out this big hose that's all crimped and it's a mess and everything. And then they show this thing that self-coils, and it's got the copper bullet handle. It's strong.
Oh yeah.
They show kids using it and drinking out of it with a little kiddie pool. They show the firemen using it. They show the dad, like hosing down the wheels of his muddy Ford F-150. They show the wife, and there's a structure.
Right.
that they use to sell things without having to talk to people.
Right.
That's how infomercials work. And today they use it on web pages.
Right.
So my whole one-page case story, story is really, it's like, I understand how, like, the structure of a page.
Got to hire Ed Winslow.
When you know how to do it, what you're really doing is you're really breaking things down into these little micro stories.
Right.
And you can create it today. You can create a portfolio of them in an hour. I have 60 real estate brokers that are coming on a call with me, and I'm going to show them how to do this.
Wow. That's awesome. Guys, give Ed Winslow a call, because you got to get into proof stacking and grow your business, create trust, credibility, transparency. No, man, you got to figure it out.
Doesn't matter what it is you do in life. It's, you're in music, you're in art, you're in school, if whatever you want to achieve, and what's really cool about this whole model that I figured out is it really helps you become introspective about yourself. What you're good at, because like you look at, some people are really good at being first baseman. Somebody else is good at being a pitcher. Somebody else is really good at being a center fielder.
Right.
Everybody's got their own unique skills. And, it's so amazing today when you look at all the different successes out there and you wonder how these people do what they do. That everybody's got their own unique skill.
Right.
Like Elon Musk, for example, he's developed he's got a skill set. Like if you look at all the companies that he's building, it's sort of repeating the same thing.
Right.
Knackle, what's he doing? He's just selling the same kind of buildings over and over. Starbucks, they sell lattes and a couple things. It's whatever we want to build in life. It's really key to figure out if you're lucky to understand what you're really good at.
Right.
And then once you know what your own unique character traits are, and you understand what you're good at, then you know where to take it.
Right.
What it is. And that's what I've learned over the years.
And no matter how long, and I'm going to end with this, no matter how long it takes. Okay. I basically disappeared. I had one friend of mine say, "What happened to you? You became invisible," because I went back to take care of my parents. And I said, "Yeah, but guess what? When the day comes, I will be back doing what I really love to do, which is this, really conversing and getting people to tell their stories, as well as me doing the shorter shows with my stories and given the advice chair." All right, well, guys, Ed Winslow,
great.
Thanks so much for coming on. I'm going to have you close off, because then once you disappear, then I got another 10 seconds to finish my show. Ed, you get a copy of the whole show. It's great having you on. I'm going to have you on again. I want to follow back up in a couple months in the new year, just to see I wonder if this little conversation resulted in another 50 calls for you. I hope so.
Well, we'll see. I actually today, what I did was, one of the things that I have found is, like, I use these digital press releases as a marketing tool. That's, because I do a lot of this online stuff.
Right.
And what I did was I created this program for real estate brokers on how to get exclusive listings with the press release, or the proof stacking press release model.
Right.
And what it is it's like I created this program and with these PDFs that real estate brokers can say to an owner, "Hey, when you hire us, we can market your property with digital press releases. We can get on Google News, we can get on Bing News, blah, blah, blah." So I created this very unique product for real estate brokers.
Right.
And so they join my membership group.
Right.
They buy the press releases from me, and I teach them how to give exclusive listing presentations.
Hey, if you're a real estate broker, you got to call Ed without a doubt. No, you got to reach out to Ed for sure. I mean, you were great back then, and now you're great at helping them become greater.
That's what it is. So that's really my focus today.
Right. I see it.
Because that's how I'm making money is, people join my group, they pay, a nominal fee. It's like $47 a month. You get a couple, you get live calls a couple days a week. And then I teach you how to build your business. I'm teaching the model.
You're teaching the model. You should be teaching the model, because I'll tell you, when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to, when you're that real estate broker, which I was, you're not thinking of necessarily outside the box looking in, and you're
Right.
able to do that for them and give them the tools for success. So if you're a real estate broker, give Ed a call for sure.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, the model works for every single business, but I can't just say this model works for everybody because nobody identifies with it. But when I say, oh, here's the strategy for a real estate broker, or here's the strategy for a personal injury attorney, or here, for a painting contractor, or a kitchen remodeling, or somebody somebody who's in high school trying to
get to college or go get
an internship.
Right.
The model works everywhere.
It's the same. The model works. We knew it worked way back then.
I remember you and I back years ago saying, we've got to turn this into a course and teach this to people. I remember you saying that.
Yeah. No, and you did it.
That's the thing that drew us all to working with NACL is the model. But back then we called it the system.
The system.
We didn't have
the system.
We called it the system, and I applied it online, and it worked online.
Right.
And one day I came up with the name Proofstacking, which is
you're killing it, Ed. You are. You really are. And you're helping out a lot you're helping, and you're expanding your presence, but you're expanding the presence of so many others. So hey, kudos.
I tell you, it's a great thing. I'm so blessed to have figured this out because it's helped so many people.
Guys, go check it out. Proofstacking.ai. Ed Winslow. Go find him online. Ed, thanks again for coming on the show. This was awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, we could talk forever and ever, but we're coming on about 70 minutes now. So you're gonna log off, and I'll see you on the other side, my friend, when we're finished.
All right,
thanks so much.
All right, you got it, man.
You got it. Thanks. Let me see. I think there's a way for me to do this too. Yeah, there you go. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for hanging in there. If you've been watching the show, I had a great conversation with my old friend, Ed Winslow. Without a doubt, there's a lot of value there. So give Ed a call. Go look him up. Join his group. Take his course. He definitely could positively impact your world. So on that note, man, guys, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Having a great time doing this. And as always, what do I say? Get your workout in. Peace.